Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of This Week in Mappercraft. This past week was March 22nd to March 28th, and we'll be covering the years of 2015, 2016, 2020, and 2021. As always, all information here can be found on the Mappercraft wiki, which is linked in the description along with the server itself. Let's go over the years. In 2015, the server was running Panegia World by Monsoon Jr. In 2016, the server was running Panegia World Revived, also under Monsoon Jr. In 2020, the server was running Solace World 2 under Solace, and in 2021, the server was running VMJ World under Multi. Let's get started, and first up, we have a bunch of events from March 22nd, 2015. To start, the Datrolon Donut border was surveyed by Monsoon Jr. According to the quote, this was a line of stone obelisks with torches on top. Pretty cool little thing. Next, on the 22nd, the Threatening Era began, which was marked by a major crisis between the central powers of Harinia, Donut, Stoneholm, and Brabantium against Datrolon Colmania. The era was relatively short, according to the quote, only 3 days really. But to start off the era, we have the Harinian Civil War, when Fedex and Phoenix started fighting. Other members of the nation didn't choose sides, according to the quote, and the hostilities eventually ceased, returning the nation to normal. And finally, the main event of the day was the start of the Donut Datrolonian crisis. Several different griefing attacks occurred on both sides, and both sides accused the other of raiding. Relations gradually deteriorated between the Donut Empire and the nation of Datrolon Colmania. And they relations naturally deteriorated over the course of the next few days, despite efforts to repair things by KCAP, as seen in the quote here. Eventually, the Donutian Empire allied itself with Harinia and Brabantium, creating the Central Powers. Datrolon Colmania and its successor Andrantium opposed them, as we will see in the next slide here. And here we have 4 events from March 23rd to the 28th, 2015. The first one is the Derpstantine Revolution, when Aaron, one of the members of Datrolon, rebels due to a hatred of diorite. According to the quote, the Derpstantine Revolution was successful and they gained independence, which is pretty good for them, I guess. Next, we have the big event for the week, the Central Powers Andrantium War on the 24th, which started as the Central Powers Datrolon Colmania War, sparking off from the Donut Datrolonian crisis earlier in the week. After Datrolon Colmania was destroyed, Monsoon formed Andrantium to sort of continue the conflict. They successfully destroyed the Empire of Donut before making peace with Harinia and Brabantium. This can be seen in the quote here. And after the war, both the ruins of Datrolon Colmania and the Donut Empire were named the Western Ruins. The end of this war brought an end to the Threatening Era and started the Expansion Era on the 25th of March, and now I never have to say Datrolon ever again. According to the quote, this was the aftermath of the major destruction of Mappercraft's first ever war. Most nations were single-player states at this point, aside from Zanzanut and members of the Central Powers. And speaking of Zanzanut, on the 26th of March, it was founded. A minorly relevant nation, which will show back up in future worlds, kind of a thread between a bunch of different worlds there. Here's the small quote for that, though. It was formed by Extra and gained a bunch of former Donut members as refugees. But that marks the end of the week in 2015. Next up, we have some events from March 22nd to the 25th of 2016 during Panegia World Revived. So this was the same map, but a whole year later, returning to play on. First up, on the 22nd, we have the Stoneholm-Harbrant War, when Stoneholm accused Harbrant of supporting a griefing raid on Stoneholm territory. Harbrant was the successor state to Brabantium, I believe. An invasion was quickly launched, but it was unsuccessful, and Harbrant counterattacked the Stoneholm capital of Stoneholm. According to the quote, after Tomad surrendered to Fedex, the Harbrantian army decided to flood the city of Stoneholm itself. The remnants of the Stoneholm military launched a sort of pseudo-guerrilla campaign to try to prevent this, but it was ultimately unsuccessful. When the dust settled on the war, the Stonehome rebuilding project was launched by Batran. According to the quote, he was essentially alone in this, but still managed to repair some amount of the city, eventually succeeding in, I believe it completed next week, so we'll go over that next week. Also, on the 22nd, preventing them from interfering in the Stonehome War, the Fourth Lapenian Civil War occurred when Joss, also known as Thenticle, tried to overthrow Matt, the leader of Lapenia, in order to attack Harbrand. According to the quote, Matt simply killed him over and over until he gave up, ensuring Stoneholm's defeat. A few days later, on the 25th, the Cocaine War broke out when TL and many other players started spamming and declaring sort of joke independence and wars. A lot of joke independences and joke wars. Eventually, though, some actual conflict did break out, with Harinia and Lapenia getting griefed, according to the quote. And this event was actually more impactful to the server outside the game directly, with Batran accusing TL of trying to sort of destroy the server with his antics. TL was once again banned by Monsoon Jr. for a month for this, so he kind of gets kicked out for a good chunk of time. But next up, we have a couple more events from the end of the week, March 25th to the 28th, 2016. First, we have the 5th Lapenian Civil War, just a couple of days after the 4th one, possibly related to the Cocaine War, when Josh Thenticle was kicked out of Lapenia. He tried to join Tomad, FedEx, and Java each in turn before being turned down by all of them. Thus, he declared a personal war on both Lapenia and Harbrand. According to the quote, though, he was unsuccessful, being killed by Nano shortly after the war began. An unclear guerrilla campaign would be launched to the end of the world by Josh, but it apparently did not have any effect. Then, probably also leading from the Cocaine War, the Lapenian Phoenix War occurred when Phoenix, a member of Harbrand, was cheated in a trade with Matt, the leader of Lapenia. He proclaimed a new nation and declared war on Lapenia in an attempt to get his diamonds back, basically. This was mildly successful, with many Lapenians getting killed and minor griefing occurring, according to the quote here. However, Batran managed to end the war and induce Phoenix to return to Harbrand by giving him an infinity bow to end the war. And finally, for the last event of this week in Panegia World Revived, we have the start of the inactive era, where people played less during the month of April and wrote less on the wiki. This lasted to the end of the world, which was in early May, and you can see it just says present on the thing there, but it lasted until, I believe, May 7th, which was the date of the next world. Next up, we have 4 events from 2020 during Solace World 2. First up, on the 23rd, the English state was formed when Pine of England returned to the server and reformed the nation. The only territory not regained from the original sort of English kingdom was the Duchy of Avon, which was a vassal of the state of Kursk at the time. You can see the quote here. Next up, on the 24th, Bavaria, and Germany both seceded from the Kursk vassal of New Land. This confederation was organized by Kursk to control their former European territories, since they now lived all the way in South America. However, opposition to this arrangement grew among the European population, as seen in the quote here. This led to a breakdown of relations between Kursk and much of the international community, as most nations felt that the Europeans deserved to be independent. The remaining allies were Kursk, Iberia, and Italy, against several international powers which supported European independence, such as the Commonwealth of America and Switzerland. Grand Columbia and the Caribbean Empire tried to stay neutral, I believe. On the 25th of May, though, 25th of May 2020, tensions boiled over with the Kurskite Commonwealth War, called the Great Patriotic War, among members of the Commonwealth. The elite Iberian army supported Kursk as volunteers, but they were unable to defeat the large Chicago horde of Commonwealth players before the much smaller nation of Kursk was destroyed and defeated. Both the large population and large size of the Commonwealth were extremely advantageous in the war, helping overcome the experience and equipment gap between the two army groups. Kursk's defeat led to a remaking of Europe as the duchies of Rubicon and Avon gained independence. The English state quickly unified with Avon to form the Third Kingdom of England, while Rubicon would form the state of Sardinia, also known as Italy. You can see all the details in the quote here, and they're also on the wiki page linked in the description for the Kurshkai Commonwealth War. This was definitely one of the more impactful wars of early Solace World 2. It showed the no war rules were effective and fun, and most importantly, usable. This was also my first war on Mappercraft. I was a member of the Commonwealth, and yeah, it was a pretty good time, for sure. For the final event for Solace World 2, we have the third matches of the PvP tournament held on March 28th. The Kursk Commonwealth War really overshadowed these, but here's the quote for that. And that will mark the end of Solace World 2 this week. Definitely a good week, and it will continue to be a pretty good month in April for Solace World 2. And finally, to end the video, we have 4 events from March 22nd to the 28th of 2021 during VMJ World. The world cooled down a bit following the defeat of Madagascar, although aggressive nations still existed on the sort of periphery of the server. On the 24th, VMJ became the longest running, and thus from a certain perspective most successful, world in Mappercraft, beating out Doom's World from 2019. Here's the quote. The original VMJ is still the longest running world, having ran for almost 200 days and around 7 months. Also on the 24th, the Portuguese Wars of Aggression began when Portugal, a successor state to Sicily, led by Butternalso, also known as Spivebob, invaded the nation of Vreuridge, Vreuxridge, on the 24th. The war was a quick victory for Portugal, and this series of wars continued on the 26th and 28th when Portugal fought with the Jaw Empire in 2 different wars which ultimately ended with Jaw's capitulation and annexation. This can be seen in the quote here. These aggressive wars would continue into the next week, and we'll discuss the conclusion of them next week. Next, on the 27th, the Gulf War kicked off between the nations of Dubai and Dasiguo. Member of Dubai, Bonito Pib, had been aggressively pushing for war with the nearby Dasiguo due to certain comments made by their leader, Jenny Budu. When Gez Molten abdicated in favor of Pib, one of the new leader's first actions was to declare war on Dasiguo. Both cities were quickly annihilated, but Dasiguo managed to technically win the war due to owning a colony in North America, which Pib had forgotten about, as seen in the quote here. However, due to the destruction, many members of both nations fled the region, leading to essentially sort of a stalemate. This was the second of the Jaime Wars, which involved colonies of Daijing Zongguo. Dasiguo was a Jaime, and Bonito Pib had a good relationship with the members of the Zongguo military, leading to sort of a neutral stance. After the war, though, on the 28th, Daijing and Shank would officially unite, forming Zongguo. This had been a long time coming, and the two nations had sort of grown together due to the events of the Malagasy War, so they officially united, leading to a period of Zongguoese domination over the world. Here's the quote, and that marks the end of VMJ World. This world definitely was so successful because it was pretty much always interesting. So we'll definitely hear more about it for pretty much as long as it's running into May. But this marks the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out the server at the link in the description. As always, if you have any additional information about any of these events, leave a comment down below or go ahead and add it to the Mappercraft wiki. See you next week for March 29th through to March 29th through to April 4th. We're starting April next week.